We are now recording. We just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And I will call this special meeting of the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Board to order. I will accept nominations for chairperson of the SU board. Bill?
I nominate Amy McMullen.
Okay, Bill has nominated Amy McMullen. Is there a second?
This is Nikki in a second.
Okay, I saw Rebecca. Actually, I think Rebecca might have gotten it first. So I will give Rebecca the second. So Bill has nominated Amy and Rebecca has seconded that nomination. Are there any further nominations for chair of the Supervisory Union Board? Hearing none, I'll call nominations to close. And I think if we do a roll call each time, that's gonna take a long time. That's my thought. I think, and Amy, you can do it differently, but what I'm going to do is just ask for a show of hands. All of those, and you can use your little hand raising thing there. To all of those who are in favor of Amy McMullen as chair of the Supervisory Union Board, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'm counting 11. Anybody?
David, you might want to just let people know that if they're not on the SU board, they don't vote.
Yeah, correct. Only the SU board votes. I was sort of looking at that, Ann, as I went around. So. All right, I think anybody opposed, please raise your hand if you're opposed. Okay, that looked unanimous to me. So I think we have a new chair, or at least a veteran chair of the Supervisory Union Board. And Amy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, David. And thank you once again, fellow board members, for putting your trust in me. And we are a team. We can't do anything without each other. So we work well together, and thank you. So I see that Nicole Gagnon, you have your hand raised.
I just didn't put it back down. Sorry, I'm still getting situated.
It's okay. Okay. I will take a motion for vice chair nomination. Nancy Pedrick, you have your hand.
I nominate Elizabeth Burrows.
I second.
And Davis. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I will. No, I think I will go with the hand raising again, because there are so many people in this meeting right now, and going through the roll call would be very difficult. So all those in favor of Elizabeth Burrows, if you could please raise your hand.
Is Elizabeth here?
Elizabeth is not here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is she okay with this?
Probably.
Yeah, that I do not know. If it turns out that she is not, then we could have another vote at our next meeting. So I have 6 hands raised in favor.
Now it's 7.
Okay, 8.
8 now, correct?
Okay.
9.
Bill?
I'm just keeping score here.
Okay.
Mark came on a little late, so, and Elizabeth is not here. She'll be on, I think, later, but
Okay, so we had 9.
9, it looks like, yep.
All those opposed to Elizabeth, please raise your hand.
Yeah, take your hands down too. If you
Okay, so there's 1. So it's so 2 opposed.
No, those were not board members, so it looks like
Oh,
it's
okay.
9-0. We're still missing Elizabeth. Are we missing anybody else?
I'm going to abstain because my guess is that she has a fairly full plate already. That would be my guess.
So we'll have 1 abstention. That's fine.
Okay, with 1 abstention.
I'm not sure if Jamie is here. Jamie had mentioned that she might not be able to make the meeting.
Right. Yes.
It looks like we have 10 board members here right now. So it's Elizabeth and Jamie, I think, who are missing. So that was 9-0-1.
Okay.
It's 111 people on.
No, there are 120 on.
Now there are, yeah. That's okay. Google will take up to 250, I think, so we're good.
And Nicole, you had your hand is raised.
I was just unsure if I'm supposed to participate in this.
Are you
No, Nicole, you're not on the SU board, so you don't vote in this.
Okay.
Only Mark, myself, and Jamie vote
Okay,
on our
thank you.
board. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome to be here, though, and to participate, but just not to vote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next. So Elizabeth has been elected as vice chair in absentia. And should she decline that, we will have another nomination and voting at our next meeting. Next on our roll is election of the clerk of the board. And this person is in charge of doing minutes in the event that our minute taker is not available. And another, now that since we are right now, we're completely virtual, and in the future we will be going hybrid. Another good role of this person would be to go through the attendance and write down everyone's names so that we have a record of everyone who attended. So I'll take a nomination for clerk of the board. Nancy.
I nominate Nikki.
I'm going to decline because I am way overbooked right now.
I'd like to nominate Colleen Spence. I believe she was the previous one, and I think she's been doing a good job, so I'd like to nominate her.
I would second that.
That's fine.
Good.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Hearing none. I am going to attempt to do a voice vote. I just want to see how this will work. How many
I have or do we have a minute taker today? This is Colleen.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we
Okay.
do.
Thank you.
In fact, after all of this, we will recognize this person who has stepped up to the challenge of taking minutes for the supervisory union board meetings.
Woohoo!
Yes. Okay. So going down through people. The first person is Anne Marie.
Aye.
Beth Roy.
Aye.
Bill Yates.
Aye.
Colleen Spence.
Aye.
Davis McGraw.
Aye.
A lot of names to go through here. Mark Youngling.
Aye.
Nancy Pedrick.
Aye.
Nicole Buck.
Aye.
Rebecca Roisman.
Aye.
And let's see, who is our other, is Sarah Stewart Taylor, are you?
I'm here, but I'm not a
Okay.
member of the SU board.
That's Beth, Colleen.
Oh, Beth, okay, yeah, sorry, okay. I knew that.
You got me, Amy.
Okay, thanks. And I vote yes, so I think that has all of the board members. So thank you, Colleen.
Correct. That was 10-0.
Okay. Election of treasurer. This person about every 2 weeks is called to go down to the SU office in Windsor to sign checks for the supervisory union. Who is currently our?
I believe that's what Scott did.
That
Yeah.
is what Scott did.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So we need a full new person.
I might take volunteers for this because it's hard to know who's available during the day. Like, for instance, I wouldn't be available during the day to do that. So maybe ask who's available to do it.
The other suggestion is to see who does it for each board, because
Yeah.
it's the same timing. So
To
that's
do a twofer, right.
our person, so he did it for our board. And I'm our person now for our board.
Okay.
When I nominate Nikki.
Okay, David, before I accept this nomination, how much extra work is it? Is it double Heartland or is it half of Heartland?
No, it's probably half of Heartland.
Okay, I'll accept.
Okay. Was there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Rebecca, second.
I think Nancy's trying to speak, but her volume.
Nancy.
I don't know if I am the treasurer of the SU. I have signed all the things. Maybe I'm just the treasurer of our district.
I think you are the treasurer of Mount Ascutney School District.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a backup for this position that we vote on? Or-
Yeah, there is.
Great.
So, yeah. Which means you can go on vacation. So I think let me just. So I am going to ask people, instead of laboring through the list of people, I'm going to ask people to raise their hands. All those in favor of electing Nicole Buck as our treasurer, please raise your hand. And we have 10 people, so fabulous. Nikki, thank you.
Let's leave the hands up so we can get the board members. All board members raise your hands. All SU voting board members raise your hand.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Yeah,
then
I think there are 10 are here.
Okay, so who's missing?
Elizabeth and Jamie.
Okay, one of the board members does not have there's only 8 hands raised, so raise your hand. Oh, that's me.
It's Amy.
Amy and me. Okay, there's 10. Okay, Amy, I'll send you this list in alphabetical order.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
You got it. Yep, I'm on it.
See,
All right, so hands can go down now. Yay. Thank you.
and I don't know that we appoint, I don't know if we vote on a backup or we just ask somebody if they're willing to back it up. But I know Nancy's already got her signature stuff all filled out, so she would make a nice backup.
I nominate Nancy.
Second.
I'd be happy to back up.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? If not, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And we have 10 hands raised. Thank you, Nancy. And now we have election of 2 signers of the manifest, and that is the person and their backup who about every 2 weeks goes to the SU office and looks over all of the invoices and is kind of the check run just to see if they have any questions on what the checks that are about to be signed the next day are going to be. It's kind of a double check kind of thing.
Who's doing it now?
I am.
I nominate Bill.
And who is your backup, Bill? Do you know?
I believe it was Colleen.
Could we do a twofer?
Yes, we can.
I can do that.
Colleen too.
Okay.
I second that.
And it was Anne Marie who seconded. Thank you. Okay, so we have Bill as first, Colleen as backup. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And we have 10 hands raised. So congratulations and thank you. That means each of you could go on vacation, just not at the same time. Okay, we have election of budget committee members. And I know that Jamie Turner, am I correct, Anne Marie, that she was interested in continuing?
Yes, and I would like to nominate her.
Okay.
I'll second.
Was Rebecca on this committee too?
Amy, you're muted.
Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you.
Are we voting on the SU member to this committee?
Well, correct.
Right. So to be on this, you would have to be on the SU board, correct?
Correct.
Is it only one member?
No, there are 2.
Who did it last time?
Rebecca was also on it, and I'd like to nominate her if she would like to continue.
I'll accept.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, if all SU board members could raise your hand in favor.
Amy, you have a list now in your email.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
Just have to get to my email. Okay, so thank you because you got all 10 votes. Now we have designation of newspaper, official newspapers.
Amy,
Have
just for a second, who are those budget committee reps? I'm sorry.
Jamie Turner
Yeah.
and Rebecca Roisman.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And Bill, you have your hand raised. Okay, thank you. So let me see. Designation of official newspapers. We have been using Valley News, Eagle Times, Vermont Standard, and Vermont Digger. Was there any other that we would like to consider? I think that covers all of our regions. Do we have consensus? If you could raise your hands. And we have 10 hands raised. Thank you. So our newspapers, official newspapers, Valley News, Eagle Times, Vermont Standard, and Vermont Digger. So thank you. Establishment of meeting day, time, and place. Our current regularly scheduled meeting is the 4th Monday of every month at 6:30. We have been, I think going forward, once we are allowed in, once our buildings begin to open up, that perhaps visiting the different schools would be a nice thing to do. We would also be hybrid because we have found, as in tonight's meeting with 134 people, that people like to attend our meetings. So thank you, everyone. Oh, we're down to 132. So we would also be hybrid. And is everyone, as far as, I guess, consensus on this, are we still okay with the, okay. And Nancy, you, okay, we're all raising hands for consensus. Okay, we have 9 hands raised. Was there?
Bill put his up.
Okay.
And so what it's Monday, right?
Yeah, it is Monday, the 4th Monday.
4th Monday, 6:30.
Yes, at 6:30.
Hybrid.
Hybrid. Yes.
Okay.
And the place will be, once things are opened up a little bit more, we'll designate on the agenda where that meeting will be. We'll also decide at the end of our meetings when we're setting the next agenda. And maybe we could have it something like going around to each school, and then once at the supervisory union building. So let me see. Nancy, your hand is raised. Okay. Colleen, did you have a comment? No. Okay, so it will be hybrid, fourth Monday of each month at 6:30. Wonderful. Okay, next up. If everyone on the school board, and I will call you because I have all your names now. If you could introduce yourself and what school district you represent for the supervisory union. And I will start with Nancy Pedrick.
I am Nancy Pedrick, and I represent the Scottney School Board and I'm at Albert Bridge in Brownsville.
Thank you. Colleen Spence.
Hi, I'm Colleen Spence, and I represent the Heartland School Board.
Thank you. Nicole Buck.
I'm Nikki Buck, and I represent the Heartland School Board.
Thanks. Davis McGraw.
Hey, I'm Davis McGraw, and I represent the Mount Scottney School Board, and I am a Windsor seat.
Thank you. Beth Roy.
Good evening, I'm Beth Roy. I'm with the Heartland School Board.
Thank you. Anne Marie Redmond.
Hi, I'm Ann Redmond, and I'm with the Weathersfield School Board.
Thank you. Rebecca Roisman.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Roisman, and I represent Mount Scottney School District, Windsor.
And Mark Youngling.
Hi, Mark Youngling, Weathersfield School Board.
Thank you very much. Have I missed anyone?
Just me.
Bill, how did I miss you?
Well, I'm just sitting in the corner here.
Okay.
I am Bill Yates. I'm on the Mount Scottney School Board, a West Windsor chair, not West Windsor seat.
Yes. And I am Amy McMillan, and I'm on the Mount Scottney School District Board, and I have a Windsor seat. So great. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. And welcome to the new people on the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Board. And next, we have changes or additions to the agenda. David, did you have any additions or changes?
No, I don't.
Okay. Oh, I also want to introduce the person who is taking our minutes.
Yeah, it's Rachel Navarro. I don't know, is Rachel here?
I do not see where Rachel is here.
Yeah, she's, well, she said that she would work from the recording if she was not able to come. So I'm guessing that's what she's going to do.
Okay, wonderful. In that case, when people speak, if they could state their name before they speak so that she can keep track, it'll make it easier. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is public participation on items not related to the agenda or announcements. And let me see, Ryan G. If you could state your full name, please.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Gay. Does it sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just want the board to be aware that there are people trying to get in to this meeting and they're not being allowed in. So maybe the server is overwhelmed, but the people are reporting to me they're not able to get in.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. I wanted to so this would be the opportunity to request an agenda item for a later date, I believe.
Correct.
All right. Tonight we're obviously gonna be very busy, so I'm gonna try to make this very brief. Excuse me. I would like to request for the next SU meeting to have an in-depth conversation about the SU's equity agenda. I've been following and watching meetings for some time, and it gets mentioned, but it's never really clear what it's really even about. I have read on the website what it sounds like you're focused on. But I think it's really important to the people to have a full disclosure and report on exactly, you know, how you're discerning where the children may lack in equity in these schools. Because I'm guessing this is in regards to children. And what the curriculum you intend to implement and essentially push on our children will cover.
Okay, we will.
And I got a little more. I'll be quick. So it's really important to bring awareness to this. I'm not a speaker, so, you know, I'm trying to keep this brief. But this is a very alarming matter that has been brought to my attention. And that is House Bill 659 in Vermont State Legislature. In quotes, this bill proposes to allow a minor who identifies as transgender to consent to receiving hormone blockers and other non-surgical gender-affirming care and treatment without requiring parental consent, end quote, and therefore knowledge. Additionally, I would like to also bring awareness to the fact that the SU board member, Elizabeth Burrows, is a co-signer on this bill in our state legislature that has already passed 2 steps and is moving on to the 3rd and final process in the legislature. I think a lot of Windsor parents should be made aware that Ms. Burrows has made this decision. I find it hard to believe that any parent or guardian would support the school or any other agency administrating these drugs or care without consent or knowledge of the parent. This needs to be discussed, the board's intentions brought into the public forum. In addition, I request each board member to relay where they stand on this issue. And furthermore, I strongly encourage and call for the resignation of Elizabeth Burrows for her overreach on this board and conflict of interest, as she is a co-signer on the legislature.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Are there any other items, public participation on items not related to the agenda? Board members, do you have any announcements? Hearing none, we will move on. The items for discussion. The only item for discussion for tonight's meeting is the masking protocol. And David, I believe you have a presentation.
Yeah, we'll try to make this quick because I know there's a lot of people on here, and we made this a one item agenda because we knew that we'd want to have some significant conversation about this. At the last board meeting, in light of the new direction and new guidance that we are getting from the AOE, we knew that we had to revisit and review our masking protocol, and the board asked myself and the administrative team to collect some data, to survey all the stakeholders, essentially, right? Parents, staff, students, and then to look at some other data points that would give us a sense of whether or not we could, in fact, make the mask mandate become optional. So we've got those data points. I sent it out to some. I think parents got them. I think the board got them. But we'll just kind of quickly, Brittany and Larry, I want to thank Brittany and Larry for putting this together in slides. So Brittany, I think, can you share your screen, Brittany, and we'll just kind of quickly go through those slides?
Yes, I can do that. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brittany Preston. I'm the Recovery and Data Coordinator for the Supervisory Union. I'm gonna get the presentation up here. Okay. David, can you see that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Do we need it bigger at all, or is it good?
I think it's good.
Okay, so I'll just go through this and then maybe save questions for David or myself at the end. So the first slide here, Larry collected the data on the % of vaccinated staff and students that we currently have in our building. I broke it down by school for this slide. You can see Albert Bridge has the highest, both for students and for staff, as well as their total overall percentage. Most of our staff is right around the 96-97% range, and our students are between 50 and 60% vaccinated in each of our buildings. Next, we surveyed staff. We got 193 responses from staff, with the overall question being, should the Supervisory Union School Board require students to be masked in school? We had 54.4% of staff say yes, they should, and 45.6% state that no, they should not be required. I did break it down a little bit further here. This was all sent out, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in it. I really wanted to figure out if there was more saying this at the younger grades versus the older grades, things of that nature. But overall, it was pretty consistent across the board, with slightly more saying that they would prefer it be required versus not. Next, we surveyed parents. We had 504 responses, which was a fantastic turnout. Again, the same question, should the Supervisory Union School Board require students to be masked in school? We had 31.2 say yes, they should, and 68.8 respond with no, they should not. I broke that down by school district this time to see if there was any differences, and really it pretty much aligned across every school. Again, I tried to break it down a little bit further to see if maybe age level made any sort of difference, or grade, and it really stayed fairly consistent. Next, we wanted to get student input, so we gave a survey to the 5th through 12th graders. We had 359 responses to that survey. Should masks be required in school? 29% said yes, and 71% said no. And then we, slightly different, we had students respond in a little bit of a different way for should masks be required in school. For our K through 4 students, we had 223 responses. Most of those responses were collected via, put a tag in this jar for yes and this jar for no, so that they could give their responses. 22% said yes, and 78% said no. David had then asked me to look at the CDC tracker for Windsor County just to see kind of where we lied. And we were at medium risk. So there's a little bit of detail in there. And then also we can certainly post this and share out the link, which gave a little bit more detail in terms of case counts by county. We also talked with our nurses and gathered information about the current positive cases in our school from the week right after February break, and then a week following that. So those numbers are posted there. And I think that is it.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. And so, my and we can take these recommendations because we really want to deal with the masking first. I mean, we can either talk about the mandatory vaccines tonight or not, but my recommendation on the masking, and even the CDC came out with a recommendation or with a statement today that masking has been proven over time, you know, in the data to be about 25% effective. And we've had a big shift. We've had a big shift between the Delta variant and the Omicron variant. And we've also seen the positivity rates now with our vaccination rates. I think mitigating some of this has really dropped. You saw that. So the AOE has given us guidelines, and we've always, as a board, followed those guidelines. And my recommendation, certainly on masking, would be that we follow the AOE guidelines regarding masking beginning on tomorrow, 3/15/2022. So I don't know whether you want to deal with them one recommendation at a time, Amy, and take that into consideration. And I give you a little bit of rationale there, but and we also, you know, we would continue to do periodic antigen testing with permission. Staff pretty much do regular antigen testing anyhow on their own, and then we would maybe right around April break, either just before or just after, like we did during the February break, maybe do some antigen testing just to see what we've got for positivity. But right now, what the Vermont Department of Health is asking us to do is to just really pay attention to symptoms, just like we would with the common cold, just like we would with the flu, just like we would with any other viral condition. And our nurses are getting pretty good at that. And the Vermont Department of Health just today issued a release to our nurses about how to handle sickness in the building and how to, you know, kind of work with, you know, with this new virus, as well as even some of the other viruses that have been around an awful lot longer. So that's my recommendation. Amy, I'll let you take it from here. I assume you want to deal with this one first, right?
I think Bill wants to make a comment. Bill Yates.
Bill, you're muted.
Of course, I was unmuted, though. Before I talk, I have to mute myself. I think that's the best way to hear what I have to say. David, you talked about in your recommendation is following the AOE's guidance on masking. I can't find any guidance online other than what was put out February 15th. And I'm not talking about, you know, press, you know, on VPR, but I'm looking for written recommendations. Do you have a link for that? Or because the last one I see is the recommendation by the AOE to end universal mask for highly vaccinated schools. And that's it. I don't see any recommendation about ending masking in non-highly vaccinated schools.
Yeah, no, I'm just going by what I get from the Secretary of Education, right? Which is, and I don't know what part of that's in writing, but all I know is that he met with all the superintendents after the February 15th news conference and said that masking is being recommended to be optional beginning on March 14th. And he didn't mention anything about vaccination rates. He said those don't play a part. I mean, he did say there would be some written guidance to follow, but I have not seen it yet. I did see the Vermont Department of Health today, and they didn't necessarily address masking, but they talked about how to deal with positive cases and those types of things. But I don't know if anybody.
So at this point, David, it's, you know, if we go with your recommendation,
there is recommendation out there.
Okay, so
before we go any farther, March 3rd. Sorry.
Yeah, I sent it to David, but I put it in the chat, but the chat's not available.
Yeah, so March 3rd, the Secretary of Ed put out updated COVID recommendations and considerations that rescinded all previous recommendations.
Right, but so there is no recommendation then.
Well, by rescinding previous recommendations, he's getting rid of the recommendation for masks.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, that's pretty much what I remember, that he said there wouldn't, he said that there would be some information coming out from the Vermont Department of Health, but there wouldn't be any any new written guidance. I think they're done with written guidance for now. I mean, given the current caseload, but I think. So
okay,
what you're saying,
so David, let me thank you, Nicole. So my issue with your recommendation, David, is it says you're going to follow the SU will follow the recommendations, but there are no recommendations.
yeah.
So I think we need something a little clearer than that we're going to follow non-recommendations. And I'm not saying we should necessarily
there's a
continue
big
masking, but I'd like the whatever we vote on to be really clear about what we're doing for
the motion should
community
be
and
carefully worded.
schools.
Yeah.
Yes, the motion should be carefully worded. And right now, I'm not comfortable with that wording because it basically says we're going to follow the recommendations. And there are no recommendations because all those recommendations have been rescinded. So
the recommendation is actually that schools now follow the general health guidance by the Vermont Department of Health. So
Katie, who are you?
I'm sorry?
Katie, who are you?
I'm sorry, Katie Burke, the COVID coordinator for the Windsor Central Supervisor Union and mom to 3 kids here in Windsor.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the missing piece of the puzzle here is that it's not that we're going from some guidance to no guidance. It's that we're switching venues who are providing guidances to the school. So it was the Agency of Education. They were providing all the health guidance in junction with the Department of Health. And now the AOE is backing off and everything is going to come from the Vermont Department of Health as general health guidance for all Vermonters.
Okay, is there anyone out there that can share that guidance?
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
No, I'll email it to you right now.
Thank you.
It was on the field memo for March 9th.
And Ann Griffin, you've had your hand raised.
You might be on mute, Ann.
I think I figured it out. Hi, it's a bit late. I've had it up for a minute. I'm Ann Griffin. I live in Windsor, have 2 kids in elementary school here in Windsor. I actually had first raised my hand on the graphs that were presented because there's the first graph showing that students unanimously across the grades said that they wanted to keep masks on, but then the second one shows that the big pie chart shows that it's actually only like 20%. So I feel like those graphs are, when I first saw them from the email, they definitely contradict themselves. So I'm not exactly sure the point being made with those is clear and or truthful.
I mean, we could go back to those. We could go back to those graphs, Ann, but I didn't see a discrepancy. Maybe we could go back to the student graphs again if you want to.
Could you? Yeah, because I'm not making it up. You've got ones that's broken out by grades that shows that every single grade voted yes. And then the pie graph shows that, in fact, the children do not want to wear masks. I mean, I find this irrelevant anyways, that we would be asking the children. We didn't ask them before we put them on them. And it's not really a decision that they need to make anyways, but the two graphs do not correlate.
Well, I'm seeing that should masks be required in school, 78% of the kids said no.
Yep, go back to earlier
yes.
ones where you broke it out by grades. The bar graphs.
Can we go back to the bar graphs?
This is parents by grade.
Nope, there's another one of students.
Okay. Did we break the students out by
you about
so these are all
presenting to us? You have one that has.
I'm happy to clarify, and so all of these maybe they weren't labeled appropriately.
Right,
this one's staff.
Nope, go back.
Staff's response, and these are also staff responding, not students. So staff who taught in pre-K to 2 or staff. We might have some staff that work in all of pre-K to 6 and some staff that are K. So I tried to break it down a little bit differently, but yeah, sorry if that was confusing. I can definitely see where
that's okay. I didn't read the top of it. I was just looking at the grades across the bottom.
No problem. Hopefully that clarifies things.
It sure did. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. So let me see, where were we on the, okay, so David, your recommendation, that's recommendation number 1.
Yeah, and I think possibly the word guidelines is what's throwing people off. I mean, the AOE recommendation regarding masking, which I think Katie addressed it pretty well. My understanding was the recommendation from the AOE, I don't know if it was on March 3rd or March 9th. And again, we get so many memos from the AOE, it's hard to keep track, but it was basically to follow the guidance that all Vermonters are to be following, which was to have masking be optional. So maybe the word there is not guidelines, but to follow the AOE recommendations regarding masking beginning on 3/15/2022.
Okay. So let me see, were there any other board members before I go to public who wanted to? I'm going to go with board members first. Anne?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to thank all the parents, the teachers, the staff, and how hard everybody has been working to keep everyone safe for the past 2 years. I do agree that it's probably time to make masking optional. I want, though, for people who might be immunocompromised or have people in their household who are immunocompromised to understand that we're not just wanting to throw you to the wolves. I've been assured by Dr. Baker that there will be high quality masks available to anybody who needs them. And I think at this point, that's really everybody's best bet, is to mask for yourself, wear proper mask yourself, because wearing a flimsy, I mean, they might be cute, some of these cloth masks, but they're not really doing anything now that Omicron is here. They were useful, maybe a year ago, but I believe it was during the summer, the CDC recommended no longer using those.
Thank you, Anne. Davis?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Davis McGraw, and I just want to echo what Ann said. About just keeping our minds on immunocompromised folks in the building and ensuring. I think that the administration and teachers have done a fantastic job over the last 2 years. Especially this past school year where it's been in person and we haven't had to go back to remote, which is huge. Just really making sure that we have the right protective gear around and are really able to protect our immunocompromised, students and teachers in our buildings as we do move away from mandatory masking. I agree that, it seems like from the CDC down to the state level, this is the guidelines and the advice is clear that we're moving away from that. And if that's just as I've, trusted the administration to make sound choices around this in the past based on this advice, I think that that's the way to go forward. And last, I just wanted to comment that I would agree with changing, I think, specifically the word guidance to recommendations, just so it doesn't seem like it's referring to something that is not there. Thank you.
Thank you, Davis. Colleen?
Are you muted, Colleen?
I was just talking and talking. I am echoing what you guys have already said, and thanking everybody who has worked so hard to keep everybody safe in these last 2 years is top of mind. And I'm looking at the list of recommendations from the Vermont Department of Health, and I'm wondering if we could throw it up on the screen for a second. It's a short list. Stay up to date on vaccinations, get tested when needed, stay home if you're sick. I'd really like to emphasize that. And make your own decisions about masking and know if you're higher risk. So check in with your doctor about masking. And those are recommendations I feel very comfortable standing behind.
Thank you, Colleen. Bill Yates.
I think you're muted, Bill.
Of course I am. Of course. I don't know. Dyslexia is a horrible disease. Trick or trout. It's the Yates boy. Give him some fish. I created my own set of recommendations that I shared with the board heads. And basically, I created it to be really quite restrictive, more restrictive than I wanted to be. But one of the pieces in it that I felt rather strongly about is to have a step transition. And one step transition, the only real step transition that I think that might be important is that to require masks in hallways for the first couple weeks. That might do a couple things. One, it may normalize mask use. So those who do choose to mask will not feel ostracized. And it will also allow the normalization of masks if we have to go back. But at the same time, I'm not wedded to this idea. It's just an idea that I wanted to throw out there. Other than that, now that the clarity behind what David is talking about with the guidance and where the guidance is, I'm more comfortable moving forward with documentation about what is recommended. And that being stay up to date on vaccinations, testing needed, and so forth.
Great, thank you, Bill. And just my feelings on the wearing masks when in the hallways, that all students would have to put a mask on and then take a mask off and put a mask on and take a mask off. I think that could lead to a lot of confusion and possibly even those who weren't having feelings of discontent could lead to feelings of discontent and even greater discontent of those who are already feeling it.
Yeah, that's the last thing I want to happen.
Yeah,
which is why I'm not
unfortunately.
really wed to it, but it's just an idea I wanted to throw out there to percolate.
Right. I know that there's still some mask guidelines that haven't gone away in the United States of America as far as travel. If you're on an airplane, I think that is still a requirement. And there are still some places that if you want to enter, you do have to wear a mask. But I think with what the CDC is recommending, that perhaps we can.
And
So with
Amy,
that, yes, Bill.
if you don't mind me sort of putting in my 2 cents here, because I did talk about looking at Claremont, and I did that. They have been mask optional for 3 weeks now, and they haven't had any significant issues. There hasn't been any school closures. There hasn't been any outbreaks or stuff like that. So I find that piece of data really sort of telling for a school district as large and diverse as the Claremont School District to do that successfully. I trust our administrators and nurses who have done a fantastic job to lead us down that same path.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Next board member, Rebecca.
What I'm thinking is, as we are clearly moving from one space into another, I see that as a big transition, and it's been a hard season for all of us. And so I think that maybe we, at this point, as we are transitioning, should consider, we do have a large mental health staff, and bringing them together to have a discussion maybe with the COVID task force. And I just want to say, if I'm not mistaken, Brittany, there were 504 parents who responded to the survey. I think that's amazing. And also getting feedback from our parents about this potential transition period as we are transitioning from one space into another. Because we really do need and value very much what they do have to say. So I'm, that's something, David, I don't know how you would go about that, but looking at getting feedback, input from our mental health staff, and just looking at how do you make this transition in a way that honors everyone, all the children, the parents, the community, the teachers, the staff. And I know it won't be easy, but clearly with the response, it sounds like that we have tonight, it sounds like people want to be part of the discussion. And again, I do echo what others have said about moving forward. I do feel also that it should be clear that, as Katie mentioned, we should really change the wording from guidelines to recommendations. And thank you.
Thank you. Next board member, Beth Roy.
Thanks, Amy. I work in a school district not far from here, and we have been masks optional for a week now. And so I just wanted to share my kind of experience of going through that. And it was, I have to say, Monday was weird. Like when we first, last Monday was, it was definitely kind of a strange thing, but it was also very, very joyful as well. And it was, I would say the numbers that I saw in those pie graphs really mimic exactly what I see in the hallways, lots of staff wearing masks, most students not. And it's just, but everyone's been really, really respectful in the sense of just people are doing what they need to do to feel good. And that's really it. So I think our schools can be showing that as well. So I'm not concerned with that lack of respect on either way with wearing masks. The one thing that I think that hasn't been addressed was busing, mask wearing and busing, because it's still a federal rule, I thought, about wearing masks in public transport.
No, they rescinded that for school buses. It does not include school buses.
I would say that's something to maybe consider, only because if we're still saying for public transit, we got a lot of kids on a bus cheek to cheek. And if that's something that we need to think about, that might be available.
Thank you, Beth. Let me see, we have Mark Youngling, and then Nancy Pedrick, and then Bill.
Hi, this is Mark Youngling. I'd like to speak in favor of making masks optional within the school. I feel that we as a community and a staff have done everything we can possibly do to protect everyone in our community through increased vaccination levels. People have done it. At this point, we've got a virus that's evolving past the masks. And I think it's definitely time to go over to making it optional. I do really like Beth's suggestion that perhaps they remain on buses, if I got that correct. that's pretty much where we are. And Amy, I just want to make sure, did you get Jamie Turner's input on how she was feeling on this?
When would she have?
She would have emailed you this afternoon, but I'm fairly comfortable. I chatted with her directly as well, and she's in favor of moving over to optional masks as well. So if she's not online here, that's what she let me know earlier today. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Mark. I hadn't seen an email from her, but I've been back and forth and was at work most of the day and not quite able to look at all of my different email. Let me see, Nancy Pedrick.
I just wanted to say that the general consensus that I hear from board members speaks for me, and that I support the superintendent's recommendation, and just want to make sure that everyone understands if things should change, masks would come back. But I think at this moment in time, we can make them optional.
Thank you, Nancy. And Bill?
You're muted, Bill.
Just looking at something that a community member sent me and realized that the state is still recommending that mask required post-infection up to 10 days. Just want to make sure everyone realizes that that's still a recommendation.
That is, if we're going to be following recommendations, then people would need to be aware of that. Thank you, Bill. Anne.
I was actually just going to share the same thing. Yes, the email came from Josh Compton to all of us. And yeah, it's on the AOE's website if y'all want me to share that with you. But it does, in fact, specify what Bill was saying. So, and it's a recent recommendation because it mentions March 14th.
Great, thank you. And Colleen.
I was going to also say the same thing, but it brings a question to mind for me of the rest of the things that we have in place. How much of that stays the same in terms of protocol when people have been diagnosed or test positive for COVID?
I can answer that quickly.
Thank you.
Our COVID task force, again, which includes 2 representatives from, the hospital, has recommended that we don't change. In other words, we stay consistent with the recommendations that were just read about a positive case, and we don't change those protocols at all. In other words, a person would have to be out 5 days if they chose to return on day 6. Even with a negative antigen test, they would be required to mask for the full 10 days. That's what our task force is saying. I don't know what other districts are doing, but I think that just makes sense. A parent could opt to keep them out for the full 10 days if they didn't want to mask up. So, but that's the recommendation right now, not to change our protocol with positive cases.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Nicole?
So I was going to start by making a motion that we adopt the superintendent's recommendation to follow, I would change the word guidelines to recommendation. So I would formally make the motion that we adopt this recommendation.
Second.
Yep. And then
Just a moment. Nancy, were you the one who seconded just for Rachel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then Elizabeth Burrows asked that, she asked if I would give per proxy, which I'm not entirely sure what that means, but because I don't think that I can vote for her. But she would really like, she has a double negative in her text, but strongly not in favor of no data trigger for remasking, so that we have to have a data trigger in order to go back to a masking world. And I think that data trigger would be following the Vermont Agency of Health's recommendations. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, can I clarify the motion? I just want to make sure that in David's presentation, his motion included staff vaccinations. I don't believe Nicole's.
No, I was just doing recommendation 1.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I was losing power. I was about to just fade away here. At least at this meeting, we were not going to address vaccination. We're only looking at masking for this. So, but thank you for clarifying that in case anyone has had that question. Let me see. At the moment, I'm only going with board members, SU board members who would be voting. Mark, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, can we read the full motion, please?
Nicole, could you read your motion again?
So the motion would be to follow the AOE recommendations regarding masking beginning on March 15th, 2022. And we can reinstate the requirement of masking if AOE recommendations change. And I guess here I'll say and VDH. Maybe we'll just say if VDH recommendations change. And that our supervisory union will continue to follow AOE and VDH guidelines, and this should remain our benchmark. I think that's as far as we need to go.
Thank you.
And Nancy, you seconded.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And now I have 4 people from our community participants who have had their hand raised for a while. First is Lindsay Rose.
Hi, thank you. I have to go back to my notes because I've had my hands raised for a while. So yeah, my name's Lindsay Rose. I am a mom to 3 kids in Heartland. 2 of them go to the Heartland Elementary School. I originally raised my hand in response to Bill because I had been saving this document that came out on March 3rd and I couldn't send it via chat. I guess the chat's turned off for this conversation. But it was from the Vermont Agency of Education, sent on March 3rd to the superintendent and heads of independent schools. And it says, it's a whole page, but it says effective on that date, there will be no school-specific COVID-19 prevention and mitigation recommendations issued by the state of Vermont. And I'm sure you all have that. Maybe there's been so many documents that have been going around since then that you lost it, but I'm happy to send that link. And then the other thing that I had written down, I'm sorry, I guess it doesn't, I don't know if it makes sense to say anymore because it sounds like you're about to vote on this, but I guess my question is, you know, I guess I'm new kind of to this whole school board thing, but how would the supervisory union have, I guess, the power to make the decision to mask our children when you don't have your own COVID plan? You've been following the state plan this whole time. You know, I know that other districts that had their own specific plan with goals and, you know, very clear guidelines could extend masking if they wanted to. And forgive me if I'm missing something with that, but what would it be based on? There doesn't seem to be any guidelines or anything, you know, to hit. And I've been listening to these meetings for a little bit now, and it seems like it's if we went outside the state guidelines and the Vermont Department of Health guidelines, it would be based on opinion. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then the other thing I was just going to say was the busing with the masking. I think that would be really confusing too, just knowing my children, they don't even bring home their gloves and hats. So I think that would be a big problem for the bus drivers, just to be quite honest, if they didn't have to wear masks at school, which I'm hoping happens. But they would have to wear masks on the bus. I know my kids, and they're probably going to lose them, and then they won't have their masks on the bus. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. I'm going to go to our school board member, Beth Roy.
Sure, I can just respond and see what I've seen with the masking on the buses thing just in my schools so far is that there's staff that are actually, as kids are heading out and getting on the buses, they have their box of masks and they hand them out to kids if they don't have them, and they jump on the bus. So it's not, kids don't have to dig through their backpack or anything like that. It's just like, oh, getting on the bus, here's a mask if you need it. So it's more of it's not the bus driver's responsibility, because you're right, that would be crazy making. And so it is just trying to, as they're jumping on the bus, just making sure they have one in their hand and put it on their face. That's just how I've seen it so far.
Thank you, Beth. Katie Burke.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to highlight that Vermont schools administrators and school nurses did such a great job, teachers, everybody, throughout the entire pandemic, that our schools were never super spreaders. And yet they have continued to remain one of the most rigid environments for all of our kids. I love that you all are voting. I hope that this motion passes. I think taking everything one step further, like masking in hallways or masking on the buses, that makes us feel good. It gives us a safety blanket, sort of a safety blanket. When kids were testing positive for COVID, they weren't getting it in the hallways. Buses continue to be one of the most unstructured places. The seat that you sit in when you get in is not necessarily the one that you get off at, when it's time for your stop, and there's very little supervision. And I just wanted to point out that any direction or benchmark to remask our kids would come from the Department of Health. So all of the nurses in each building are going to continue to report COVID cases to the Department of Health. If the Department of Health determines that there's an outbreak, quote unquote, then the Department of Health will communicate next steps to that district or to that one building. And that will be what the administrators and school nurses will have to follow. That's all.
Great, thank you, Katie. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when there were a number of schools that were being closed because of the number of COVID cases, I think it was coming from the Department of Health and not someone at the school saying, oh, we have, whatever. So there were clear guidelines from the Department of Health.
Exactly. Schools were actually told they could not close on their own accord, that they needed to be directed to by a governing agency.
Right. And thank goodness none of the schools in Windsor Southeast had to close. I think we were close a couple of times, but we managed to squeak and stay open. So thank you, Katie. I just want to remind board members that we do have a motion, and we're hearing from our community now. And next up is Elizabeth Roberts.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Roberts, and I have two children in the Wethersfield School, 5th and 6th grade. I did up a little write-up, so I'm going to read it. And yeah. As a lifelong Vermont resident and a 97 graduate of Wethersfield, I am appalled and disheartened for how much the school has changed, and unfortunately not for the better overall. There's been times that I have wanted to speak up for many things, and I have bit my tongue and kept quiet, but I'm sorry that I cannot do that anymore. The way things should be done and the way they are being done are so far from one another that you have lost why we are all here. Parents are here at the meeting for their children's safety and their education, and you say you are here for the same thing, but I feel confident in saying that you fell short on showing us that you meant it. The children's health is one of the most important things, both physical and mental. If you want the same, then prove it by letting not only our children make their own choice as individuals, but taking into consideration how parents feel and what we want as well. We need to create a better relationship between everyone. And as a parent of a 5th and 6th grader, I've lost a lot of trust for my school. Not everyone in it, but the school as a whole. One reason is because I'm not allowed to go into my children's school because I am not vaccinated. It's a violation of my right as a parent to be able to have access to my child at any point in time during the day. It feels as though the school is keeping parents away from their children. In my entire school career, as a student and as now a parent, I've never heard of this happening. All my life, I've been told to stand up for what you believe in. If you don't like something, then voice it. You have the right to voice your opinion on anything, and it feels like we have been shut down every single time we have done this regarding the masks. I am not saying that people who want to wear masks should not. I am not saying that everyone should be required to do it. I am saying give them the choice, that if they want to, let them. I've been saying this forever. Us being able to have a choice, our children being able to have the choice, will help build them into adults that won't be backed into a corner when they find themselves wanting to voice their opinion, because they know that their opinion and their choice matters. So all I'm saying is give our children their choice. Give us our choice. Give us the right to choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, we have Jason LaRochelle.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jason LaRochelle from Weathersfield. I have 2 kids in the school system. I did have a question before I started. The board keeps mentioning something about a vaccination requirement or mandate. Can someone clarify what they're talking about there?
At this point in time, we are talking about our masking and whether that will be optional or not. We're not taking up any sort of conversation on vaccination.
Right, but it was mentioned in the beginning of the meeting. I just wanted to clarify what they were talking about.
Yeah, Jason, they're talking about back in August of 2021, the Supervisory Union Board voted to mandate that all staff members be vaccinated. And they did do that. And I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing such a high vaccination rate among the staff. But it's worked out pretty well. But that's what they're referring to.
Okay, I didn't hear the staff part. I just wanted to clarify that. So yeah, I just wanted to thank the board and the community and everybody for the past 2 years has been difficult for everyone, and I know a lot of people have done a lot of things that aren't normally part of their daily duties and jobs. I want to state that my position is masks should be a choice, given by the parents or the children. I also want to reiterate that the past 2 years, I really feel like we've lost transparency as parents in relation to the school board. It feels like a lot of choices have been taken away from us, and as far as what is being done in our schools. One example being that Weathersfield decided to take away mask breaks for our children for the entire day. There were no mask breaks. Masks were required outside, inside, and unbeknownst to us, this occurred for months, and we had zero say in it. I know that the board members have all said this was a mistake and this was never supposed to happen, but it did happen. And I think that it's important that we as parents keep a better eye on what is occurring in our schools. And I would ask that the board keep us more informed as far as particular events that happen or changes. I did like how the survey results were given to us by email before this meeting. That's definitely a step in the right direction as far as transparency goes. And I would hope and ask you to consider that in the future, that this continues down that path. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Stephen, Grace?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Kristen, and my son here is Tyler. He's here listening as well as a student. I have 2 children in the school. I'm part of the PTO, and I have coached sports. I feel that parents need to be informed about every decision, everything. We need to be part of this group in all your decisions. I feel that masks need to be an option at all times. I don't feel there should ever be a going back. I feel the status mentally for these students has been so much. They should have always had options, just as parents have options for their students. You know, I think we need to keep an open communication for their education. The masks are affecting their developmental skills, their mental status. And I think you guys need to really be open and listening to all of us at all times. And when you guys vote on this, remember, we won't stop fighting for our children, that they come first. And it is so important to them to have these options of freedom of choice and to stick up for what they believe. Being in healthcare myself, I've had to fight these things. So I understand what it's faced with, and it's not easy. So if they should have choices to not wear a mask or to wear a mask, it needs to be an option. And you can't make it favorable and say, well, we support the 30% to wear a mask and we need to treat them good. No, you need to treat everyone the same. It needs to be equal across the board, as treating them if they want to wear a mask or if they don't, in the same respect to all of them. My son just wanted to quickly say something as well.
Hi, I am Tyler. I am currently in 6th grade. I am fine with people that want to wear a mask, but I want the option to wear a mask.
And I just want you to see that he's trying, and he's trying to stick up for himself and his rights. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for both of you. Next, we have Anne Griffin.
So I feel like, I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure that I feel like I raised my hand and then it took a while and I was listening to everyone and may have forgotten what I was going to say. But I'm just going to go to my notes and just the points that I had come to this meeting prepared to present. That's like, can we switch them? Got it. Okay. So I had just planned to say that I had just a few points to bring up. One that we've already covered, that all the guidelines, everything that these decisions have been based on have been, you know, the CDC, the AOE, the VDH. So at this point, it just seems silly that we're having such a long conversation where that's who you've always taken your advice from, and now they're saying to stop. So their recommendation is no mask mandates, and then phasing out all COVID protocols. So I feel like it's a pretty easy, that's what we should do. I was going to also say that no one was involved in voting for any of these protocols, not parents, staff, or children. So it seems like we're spending a lot of time, a lot of energy polling everyone about taking masks off when it really, no one was asked about putting them on. So I think it's kind of silly to talk about easing them into taking them off and stuff like that. What other point did I have? And I also, I do have a couple of incidents where my children were pretty negatively affected by all of these guidelines, all of these things that have happened over the last couple of years. I've shared them via email before to the superintendent, to the board. And I think you all need to acknowledge that children were pretty badly affected over the last couple of years. I know that you like to say how successful all of this was, but there was a lot of damage. And I think you need to acknowledge that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Misty Bouton, please.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Misty Bouton, Windsor mom. I wrote something up, so I'm just going to read it. I try to keep it down to 2 minutes, but I don't want to speed read, so it might go over a couple of seconds. Listening to recent school board meetings, one term I've heard repeatedly is kids are resilient. Most recently, I heard David Baker say this in the Heartland meeting. I think this is a false term that adults use to comfort themselves and relieve themselves from the damages they create in children's lives. Just for reference, I've worked as a developmental educator and major in psychology. I have adopted a child out of foster care and have spent the better half of 4 years studying childhood trauma, including but not limited to foster care classes, college courses, and training. Believing kids are resilient increases risk of untreated trauma. This trauma is referred to ACEs. ACEs is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's recognized and studied by the CDC. 60% of adults have at least one ACE. A quarter of US adults have experienced at least 3 or more ACEs. High ACEs is associated with shortening lifespans up to 19 years. Suicide and drug overdoses are among those heightened risk factors for individuals with ACEs. The CDC has gathered data over the course of the last 2 years regarding suicide and attempted suicide. There was a 31% increase of mental health related visits to the ED in 2020 versus 2019 in adolescents 12 to 17. When comparing ED-related hospitalizations due to attempted suicide from 2019 and 2021, it was found that there was 50.6% increase in attempted suicide in girls aged 12 to 17. The data alone proves kids are not resilient. They wouldn't be trying to kill themselves if they were resilient. CDC says it may be possible to decrease risk of future harm, including suicide and drug overdoses in individuals with ACEs, with efforts of protectiveness, including school connectedness and social emotional learning. Children are not resilient. Children become adults with trauma due to failure of broken belief systems. We already are seeing the impacts of pandemic trauma in our youth. Doctors across the world are calling for normalcy. This includes removing masks, returning to pre-pandemic social settings in schools, and getting our children back to a normal way of life. If we don't take this seriously, we will have a generation of adults with significant untreated ACEs. I call for return of normalcy in our schools. Thank you. And you have closed the chat in the group. I was going to post all of the links that bring you to all of this data, which is published by the CDC. So if you want that information, please reach out to me and I can provide it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Misty. Again, a reminder to the board. I'm going to take 2 more. I see that there are 2 more people, and then the board is, I see 3. So, and then the board is going to vote on the motion that is currently on the floor. I see Tara Howard. Before you start, Tara, so it's Tara Howard, Ryan G., and Sarah Tarleton. And then we will go to a vote of the board.
Is it okay if I go now?
Yes.
I just want to take a second to point out that I would say the majority of our children in all of the schools here, they don't wear their masks correctly, especially our smaller children, regardless of which type of mask you wear. Once it becomes moist, which usually only takes about 20 minutes after putting it on, it should be switched out and your hands should be washed, as it becomes a breeding ground for any bacteria that you come in contact with. This is not happening in our school. Your masks are not supposed to be touched ever. And all I ever see with kids with masks on is them adjusting it and touching it. It's actually putting our kids at a greater risk of catching contagious airborne illnesses as they're touching their masks all day. I watched the cold and Omicron ravage through our school this year, even though our kids were masked. Even though my child was masked, we still had COVID come home. Again, I'm going to read a card that literally comes with the masks that we're talking about here. This mask is not a medical device, toy, or personnel protective equipment offering protection from COVID-19 or any other airborne particles. This product is not intended as a replacement for medical grade personnel protective equipment or other recommended measures to stop the community spread of COVID-19, including social distancing, washing your hands, and refraining from touching your face. Student masking has no scientifically established benefits in real-world use. Potential harms for long-term maskings are poorly understood, and reports of mask removal have noted social and emotional benefits for students. Moving to mask optional policies and increasing school-based supports and interventions for children will be crucial for their mental health. Please let our children breathe fresh air and start to get back to a normal atmosphere. They have suffered enough and they have already lost 2 years of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. And let me see, I have one more added who is a staff from Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union. But next we have Ryan.
Hi, Ryan Gay here. Can everybody hear me again?
Yes.
I'd just like to, thank the SU board for, letting the parents be heard. And there's a lot of strong people here that are saying things that are hard to say, but I think really what's in question here is the competency of this board, because the facts are out there and they have been out there for a long time about the effectiveness of masks and the harm caused by masks. That said, we all can acknowledge those facts. The board had the best interests at first, but clearly somewhere along the way, the board got lost and didn't put the kids first. That can never happen again. I urge this board to never mask these children again. I think a common sense notion, just like with field trips, send a legal liability waiver home to the parents with some documentation on your facts or your concerns, and let the parents decide. We can sign a liability waiver releasing our kids from your masking policy, and we accept that responsibility. And anyone that wants to mask is more than welcome to mask without discrimination or being treated differently otherwise. But I would really appreciate the board to consider a common sense approach to the masking question. And we're all gonna be working together on some more very alarming issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Sarah Tarleton.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Amy. I'm not a Windsor parent. However, my child was directly affected by the Windsor School Board stance on masks, which I think is important to recognize. My daughter has a medical exemption for a mask. Your school board refused to honor her medical mask exemption. That was validated by the state, by the BPA, and you refused to play a team that did not wear a mask for a child that had a medical exemption. to the point that Misty Booten made, there is extensive fallout. There's extensive damage that these policies have made. With this board refusal to play a team that has one student with a mask exemption, medical, really caused a lot of hurt, a lot of mental hurt that was in no way needed. Had this board followed the medical mask exemption, the pathway forward by the VPA, it would have been a different story. I am not a Windsor parent, although I've sat on this Windsor school board for 3 years. I used to be part of your community and reached out to the board when the superintendent canceled the basketball game with about half an hour notice. Not one board member returned my phone call. Not one more board member returned my emails. I urge you to be responsive, to be informed, and to be really looking at the real life consequences of your decisions. Because these are our children, they're our future, and it's not as easy for them as it may be for us. They're growing up. They can't see necessarily the forest through the trees. They're children. It's our job to respect them and to honor medical advice from doctors and the VPA. I appreciate your time, and I hope that our children are never masked again.
Thank you, Sarah. And our final person before we have the board vote is Annalise Ennis.
Hi, I'm Annalise Ennis. I work at Albert Bridge School, and I'm also a parent of a Windsor student. And I have heard lots of people express their things, and I think we can all say as parents, we've experienced things from very different sides, and we all have personal feelings tied to mask or not masking. I think that the biggest thing that we need to walk away from this is understanding that we have gone through a pandemic and we've never lived through a pandemic before. So choices being made, choices not being made, it's being done in the best interest of what people think they should be doing on behalf of our children. And I do know from working inside the school, it has kept a lot of our students safe with having to wear masks. I love the fact that there are so many people on this meeting, and I really hope that this starts a trend where we have lots of parent involvement in the things to come, especially as we do recover from this. And one of the things I really want to talk about is the social emotional needs that a lot of our students have. We have a lot of angry kids. It's not centered particularly around masking. It's centered more around the fact that we have become an angry society, and we have to learn how to reconnect with each other. And that means reconnecting with the teachers, reconnecting with people who work in the school, and coming back together and doing more team approach so that we can enhance our kids' education and enhance the school community that they are a part of. I think that's going to help out with a lot of behaviors that we're seeing. I think it's going to help out with our future, our children. And so I hope that everyone who has these feelings about masks will start showing up for things that have to do with our mental health of our students, and particularly how to make them recover from what we've just gone through.
Thank you, Annalise. And now it is time. The board is going to vote. David, could you read the motion one more time, please?
Let me get my volume on. So the motion, and it was made by Nikki and seconded by Nancy, was to follow the AOE recommendations regarding masking beginning on March 15th, 2022, with any reinstatement requirement only changing if the AOE and VDH guidance should change.
Thank you. I will do a roll call vote, beginning with Nancy.
Aye.
Colleen.
Aye.
Nikki.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Rebecca.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So it is unanimous that masking is optional beginning tomorrow, and that we will be following the AOE and Vermont Department of Health guidance, as well as monitoring CDC data. And Anne, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I just wanted to make a point, well, to David and to any members of the administration and teachers that might be on here, to not discourage kids that want to continue to wear masks. They may have a family member that is immunocompromised. You don't know what is going on in their home. So I just would like to make sure that no one on the staff or administration would dissuade any student that wishes to continue to wear a mask, or any staff member also who wishes to continue to wear a mask. I think we need to respect those people's decision and allow them to wear the mask if they still want to wear them. I think I would encourage them, though, to wear the better kind of mask if they're not already. They should at least be wearing a KN95 or an N95.
Thank you. And also for administrators and teachers to keep an eye for the students whose students and or whose parents request that they continue to wear a mask, that they not be singled out for wearing a mask, as well as students who don't want to wear a mask, that we learn how to be civil and kind to each other. And I will call on Rebecca Roisman, and then I'll go to the public. Rebecca.
Thank you, Amy. I would also like for some sort of, David, some sort of statement go out to staff so that they all are presenting to students the same presentation around this change, and that you don't have one teacher saying one thing, one staff member saying one thing, and another staff member saying something else. I don't know how you would do that, but I think it would really help students as they transition from class to class, or to be hearing the same message from all the staff and all of the adults.
Yeah, just Rebecca, I know that I sent out an email to all staff a week ago, actually, in anticipation of this meeting and what might happen at this meeting. And I know there were classroom discussions, comments, but I did think it might be good, and I'll try to get something out. I mean, to me, since the AOE has relinquished any future guidance to the Vermont Department of Health, I think what Colleen was talking about, which is that Vermont Department of Health, how to protect yourself and others, I think I'll probably just point them to that page, because it's a nice outline of what you might want to say to children at really almost at any age. You'd have to make it developmentally appropriate, but one of the things that it says there is certainly a person can decide to take their own precautions, including mask wearing, and we would just kind of go through that. I think that that pretty much says it all, but we'll try to do that, Rebecca. The timeline is a little short, but I plan to get something out quickly tonight. And same thing with parents. I'll probably either do a robocall or or a quick email tonight. I think people were anticipating this might happen tonight, so hopefully they're fine. And I know we've got some other people with hands up, but I don't know whether this board wants to give me clarity on school buses. I heard that being batted around, but because my other call tonight was going to be to our bus coordinator. I mean, those drivers have to know what to tell those kids tomorrow. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't clear in terms of whether or not we would encourage mask wearing on buses, or mask wearing would be mandated on buses. I mean, I'm just not sure. I know we talked about it, but I'm not clear on that.
I'm going to let Nicole speak. She might want to say something on that one.
Way to put me on the spot, Amy. I actually wanted to follow up on some of the comments that the public made that kind of hinted that the board was doing things in secret and we were not being fully public. This board always makes all of our decisions in public. We are not allowed to make decisions not in public. And I would say that the participation from parents in the last 2 years has been greater than we have ever seen. There are more parents involved in the last 2 years than we have ever seen in my entire 8 years on any of these boards. And so I just want to really thank the parents for being involved. But I take exception to the comments that we've been secretive. We have never broken any laws. We have made all of these decisions in public. And we will continue to do those things. And you're welcome to come to any of these meetings. We appreciate having the parents involved. I also really look forward to parents being involved in the schools again. I hope that we're able to teach our children how to be kind to each other and set a good example in those ways. So as far as busing, my personal opinion is that if we've gotten rid of masks at this level, that we should, or made masks optional, that they would still be optional on buses, with the understanding that buses may be a higher transmission, and maybe making parents aware of that. That's it.
Thank you, Nikki. And that is kind of where I am as far as busing and masks, is that I think if it's optional in the buildings, it should be optional on the bus as well, just to alleviate confusion and frustration of everyone involved. And let me see, Bill Yates.
Yeah, I'd like to also sort of go along that is if the AOE and the Department of Health doesn't have any specific recommendations for the bus that override optional, I think that mask being optional would apply everywhere. I also want to follow up what Nikki said about, public participation, and in the fact that I know these meetings are time consuming, and I know very well they're time consuming. At the same time, we do make all decisions in public, and I encourage parents at the very least to read the minutes to know what actually has happened at a board meeting, and to read letters from, and read the parent email sent home. That's it.
Thank you, Bill. Davis?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of piggybacking off of what Nikki and Bill have said, we do make our decisions in public. I know that there is always more work to do as far as making meetings accessible to parents and community members and students and anybody who wants to take part. I know that I believe this meeting went out. There was some additional press about it, maybe on the website or a banner of some sort. Larry might be able to clarify that because we talked about it at a previous meeting. But I think in general, just kind of keeping open minds in the board and administration, and thinking outside of the box of how we can get the word out. And, even though I know as a member of this board that we do everything in public, it's perception is important too. So if there's more that we can be doing to make it clear that we're working in daylight and get the word out and make sure that people can attend these meetings, find the links, have the materials that they need when they need them. There's always more we can do. I think that that's incredibly important. So I take that particular criticism and those perceptions really seriously. So I think it should just be an ongoing conversation. I don't think that there's any desire to not do that. So there's no reason to not push in that direction. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Davis. And just a clarification of a school board meeting is that our meetings are held in public. So it's a meeting in the public, but it's not a public meeting. It's a meeting of the board, and we do our business in a public setting. If we were having a meeting of the public, it would be called a public forum. And with that, I'm going to take Larry Dower, and then I have 4 people from the public. Larry.
Yeah, just because Davis mentioned it, we did add that banner because we knew this was a special board meeting. And also at the front of the website now, underneath the pictures that cycle through and above the news section, we added board meetings for that coming month for each school board. And we're going to keep that going and try to keep that updated as well as we can. So basically, on April 1st, everything will move over, and then you'll have the April dates and times for each. So we wanted to find a way to put it on the front of the website so people don't have to go searching around. And if you click on that, it'll take you right to the board page. So we wanted to do it in a clean way that doesn't take away from the website from a UI standpoint, but also gives the information at your fingertips. So I don't think anybody going to the website now, you can't hunt and peck. It's right there at the front every date. That's all I have.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot, Larry. Thanks.
Yeah, great, Larry. Thank you. Okay, first we have Ann Griffin.
Hi, thank you. So I have one point is that I'm not sure necessarily that myself and possibly a bunch of other parents that I know are saying that you're doing things not in public, but doing them in public where we can watch you in a meeting doesn't mean that you were taking our opinions into consideration. I think that there's a very large group of parents who feel that you are not taking our opinions into consideration. So I think that might be more of the point and the sentiment. So we know that you're doing this in public. The other point I just wanted to make went back to, again, we've brought up the need to make sure no one gets picked on for wearing a mask or, things like that. How about God, for 2 years David's called me an anti-vaxxer 28 times, and I actually am vaccinated against everything except COVID. So I have taken great offense to that. I think that we need to make sure that the children who decide to take their masks off are treated appropriately. Over the past 2 years, your school, Windsor School, has had teachers trying to scare my children to death about COVID, like so inappropriate. My 6th grader decided she wasn't going to do band because all it was the band teacher swearing and screaming at the kids because their masks went down under their nose. So then he went so far as to lie to them and say they may not, quote, give a shit, but he does because his sister's dying in the hospital right now on a ventilator from COVID, which, I'm sorry, is about the most inappropriate thing I've heard out of my child that's happened in that school this year. So I think, 10 years, 3 years ago, 5 years, 10 years ago, you could slap a paper mask on your face and go anywhere you wanted. There's never been any thing that says you can't. I have a friend who wears a mask every allergy season. She's outside in her garden with one on. She's in the grocery store with one on. Like, you can wear a mask. It's always been a thing. What we have done, sorry, I shouldn't put it on you, is we've created it where, because you don't think that the mask does any good or you want to take it off, you're the one being ridiculed. So please don't sit here and talk about, because you've got teachers that are obviously scared out of their minds and they are hurting the children. Like, you've got teachers in there putting death counts on the board. I'm not okay with that. What I want to teach my 2nd and 6th grader about COVID and what's going on is up to me. It's not up to your staff to scare them. And
Okay, thank you,
furthermore,
Ann.
if your staff is too frightened to work in a building where kids and other people are unmasked, then it's flipped and they have the ultimatum, because you gave the ones who didn't want to get vaccinated the ultimatum to find another job. So now these ones can have the ultimatum.
Thank you, Ann.
This is another example. You listen, but you don't listen. You have no response. You just sit there and stare, yeah. So, all right, that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Lindsay Rose.
Yes, hi, thank you. I had a similar sentiment to Ann. I keep hearing the board recently just, concerned about the children or staff who want to keep their masks on, and I totally understand that, and they're obviously more than welcome to keep their masks on. But I've mentioned this in other meetings. My daughter, was her friends that she's been good friends with that are so kind, when she realized she could take her mask off outside at the schoolyard, like, they ran away from her screaming, saying she had cooties. But I don't hear anyone talking about protecting her and the bullying that she gets. So I think we just have to be really aware that there's going to be bullying on all sides, like there always is in schools, and that we can depend on parents and staff to mitigate it as needed. But the other thing I wanted to mention, I haven't had time to talk to the school directly about this. My 4th grader came home today and told me that his teacher read him something from a document, and I'm wondering, Dr. Baker, if it was a statement you sent out to the school or not, about how masking may be happening and the appropriate way to act. And the only thing he could remember from it was that maybe he has a friend who is at risk of a certain disease that wants to wear a mask, and maybe it would be better to keep a mask in his backpack in case he's around someone who's uncomfortable, that he's unmasked. And I had to explain to my child that it's not his job to make other people feel safe anymore, because we're not in the middle of a pandemic. We're moving to an endemic. We're moving away from this. I will not normalize mask wearing. I don't think that's okay. I think it's okay for everyone to make their own personal decision. But I guess I would love clarity on what the teachers are reading to our children, and if that came from your board or what that is. And if you are going to be sending something out to the teachers, sounded like you already did, but if there's something else coming, I would love the parents to be able to read that so we can talk to our children about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Misty Boutin.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Anne and Lindsay kind of already piggybacked off what I had raised my hand for. I had made that statement about, the flipped, diversity in the school, and how, kids who were not vaccinated and vice versa, who didn't want to wear their masks, were discriminated against, right, for the past year. And Dr. Baker had made a comment to that regard. Well, I can walk in the building and not know who's vaccinated and who's unvaccinated. But we can all acknowledge, I think as adults, that all the teachers and students in that school know who is vaccinated and unvaccinated, right? Because we sent unvaccinated kids home when there was an exposure, right? So they had to stay home for 7 days in quarantine, and the vaccinated kids got to stay. So you can't tell me that the teachers and the students and administrators didn't know who was vaccinated and who was unvaccinated. And that discrimination surely happened. This is what we're talking about, is recognizing that some of the choices this board has made has seriously impacted kids, and you have to start to admit that, or we're never going to make the repairs. I mean, there's major repairs, major. I see it in my kids, I see it in other kids, and we have a long road ahead to fix the damage that we've all created. So I just would love to hear the board acknowledge that these policies have hurt kids. They have. Anybody want to admit that the policies have hurt kids would be great way to admit to parents and acknowledge our feelings. Thank you.
Thank you, Misty. And we are aware that the past 2 years and policies and procedures and protocols around COVID-19 have caused trauma to kids. That's caused trauma to kids' parents. It's caused trauma to kids' neighbors who do not have kids. And it's not just kids in elementary school or high school. It has caused significant trauma to parents and kids in colleges who have lost time that everyone says is very special. Graduations have been affected, and we have acknowledged this. The state has acknowledged this. Our hospitals, we understand that we need to begin to look at the social, emotional health of all of our students and of all of our staff. And a significant, if not all, of the money that we have received through federal relief is going to programs that are going to help with student emotional and social well-being. And a lot of the past meetings, there has been discussion on the different programs that are in place to assist students and staff with social emotional well-being. And I believe some of that we've definitely discussed in meetings, and it has also gone out in numerous emails, educational updates from our superintendent, as well as in minutes of past board meetings. And let me see, Ryan G.
Thanks again, SU board. Ryan Gay here again. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Amy, for actually responding to some of our concerns. And that's exactly what the parents want. And that's why you had so many of us participate, is we want to be heard. And we want some level of accountability. And moving forward, I think it's important that there's more engagement. As well as I wanted to reiterate kind of what Bill and some other people were touching on. The AOE actually was very clear with the guidance that the masking would not be on the bus. And I think that's where you guys are going. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware that was the guidance. No masking on the bus. It was actually specified. Regardless, I think you guys are gonna make the right call on that. As well as part of that accountability and that communication that we are really in need of in cooperation is my agenda item going to be on the meeting next month.
Let me see, that agenda has been so the agenda for the meeting on March 28th, the first item for discussion is equity work. So if that is what you were asking about, then yes.
Sorry, are you saying that was already on the agenda?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Well, I know there's a lot of community members that are very concerned with what's going on, and there's way more to elaborate on that, but that's not why we're here tonight. And I have very valid concerns pertaining to my own child at Wethersfield School.
Okay.
But yeah, that's great to hear, and I'm glad. Thank you for clarifying that, and thank you for your time. Let's try to make a better future for the kids.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is what we're here for.
Agreed.
So I believe without any further discussion, that I will take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved. That's
That
Davis.
was Davis. And that was Rebecca. And let's have a show of hands of board members. See if we still have our 10 people.
Thank you, Amy.
And we do. Thank
Yes,
you
thank
very
you.
much, everyone. And I want to thank our community. That might be the most that's ever attended.
That'll be the biggest meeting.
Yes. I'm trying to find where I had, I think it was up to 190. No, it was over 200 at one point, I think. So I want to thank everyone for attending, and for those of you who spoke and shared your thoughts and concerns with the board. And that is what we're here for, is to promote and create a safe and a safe educational environment for all of our kids and staff. So thank you very much. And I will say good night.
Thank you, Amy.
Good night. You're welcome.
Good night. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Night all.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.